Hello and welcome once again to my Bisaya Programming series. So you are now here on the Build a Web Application playlist Zero to Hero. So karon na nata sa chapter 2. So as a preview or as a recap sa ato ang chapter 1. So last chapter we talked about the softwares that we needed to build a website. Then we talked also about the list of text editors for Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and Chrome OS. So if wala pa kakakita ani or wala pa kakakita sa video, then you can check my previous video for this one. Okay? So now let's go to our chapter 2, which is what is needed for a website. When you're making your first website, there's a lot to do, as well as writing your HTML and CSS code. You need to test your website, buy domain and hosting, upload your files, and more. So there are also optional things like SEO, analytics, and validation. So find out how to set up all these things right away and with minimal stress. So let's build your website. So please stay tuned. Please do subscribe to my channel, again, Bisaya Programming. So now, HTML and CSS are the basic languages of websites, and you need both to make a good website. HTML without any CSS will not only look ugly, but it can make it look like there is a serious problem with your site. HTML and CSS are very easy to learn compared to other coding languages. You'll also need a text editor, that which we are previously discussed for our first topic or first chapter about text editor, to write your HTML and CSS code. A text editor is a special program that's designed for writing code rather than our word processor like Microsoft Word. Just simple, just a text editor, okay? So now, let's proceed here. Website scripting. Every website needs HTML and CSS. However, depending on the type of website you are building, you may also need website scripting. Website scripting is what turns a static website into a dynamic website. It's very likely that your website will need or at least benefit from scripting. Here are some examples of website scripting. Number 1, contact forms. Number 2, interactive buttons and controls. Number 3, website databases. And the last, shared content between web pages. So these are the website scripting, okay? So if you think your website will need any of the above things, you'll need to learn coding language such as JavaScript, PHP, Ruby on Rails, or ASP.NET. But this time, we'll talk about HTML and CSS, since you are beginner, okay? So now, web browsers. Each web browser renders HTML and CSS in a different way. So you'll also need to make sure that your website displays and functions properly in each one. The 5 most popular web browsers in order from most to less popular. So we have the Google Chrome, the Windows Internet Explorer, the Mozilla Firefox, the Apple Safari, and the Opera. So last time on the chapter 1, we already discussed about web browsers. So you can check my previous video for this one, for the chapter 1 of the Build a Website Zero to Hero playlist. So now let's proceed. Internet Explorer is particularly notorious for being slow to support new HTML and CSS capabilities. And most web designers find it a pain to optimize their websites for Internet Explorer. So just a heads up on that one, okay? So now, let's proceed to the domain and hosting. Web hosting is a service that hosts your website files, HTML, CSS, images, scripts, and others on a server so that anyone can access your site. A domain name is the address of your site, for example, codeconquest.com or facebook.com, youtube.com. So those are the examples of a domain name. There are many different companies online that sells domain and hosting. So you'll want to research some of the popular options like GoDaddy, the Media Temple, Namecheap, HostGator, Bluehost, and DreamHost, just name a few, okay? So there's a lot of hosting or domains companies out there, so you can check it out. So important. If you're going to include scripting on your website, you may need to go with a special hosting provider. If you're using JavaScript or PHP and MySQL, then you don't need to worry. However, technologies like Ruby on Rails, Python, and ASP.NET are generally not supported by standard web hosting. So if you're using any of less common coding languages or frameworks, consult the documentation for the language or framework for instructions on how to host your site. Okay? Take note for that one. Just take note for this. So let's go to file transfer protocol. To transfer your website files from your computer to the server that you'll be hosting your website, you need to use file transfer protocol or the FTP. This simply means uploading files to the internet. So when you log into your hosting account, there is normally a service that lets you upload your files through a web interface. Alternatively, you can use program like FileZilla to upload your files without logging in your hosting account. So we will have another series of FileZilla, the tutorial for that one soon or later, okay? So now, let's proceed to the optional analytics software. Analytics software is optional, but if you want to be able to track how visitors are interacting with your website, it is very useful. Analytics software lets you see how many people are visiting your website, which pages they are viewing, how long they are staying on the website, and the last is the sites they were on prior to visiting yours, okay? So Google provides a 100% free tool to make all of this possible, called Google Analytics. There are other analytics providers, but Google Analytics is the most popular and most likely the only one you'll need. Another optional, search engine optimization, or the SEO. The SEO is the use of the certain on-site and off-site strategies to increase search engine traffic to your website. There's a lot to learn if you want to get good SEO, so we are not going to go into too much detail. So if you don't want to optimize your site, here's a good place to start. Identify search engine keyphrases related to your website and include those keyphrases on your site in certain places, such as this command or this script, HTML tag, or H1 HTML tag. Next, another optional, validation. One last thing that's worth mentioning is validation. Validation lets you check whether your website meets the W3 standard. If it doesn't, nothing bad will happen, but there is no harm in doing it. Validating your code is simple. The W3C provides free tools that you can run your HTML and CSS code through to detect any errors. So here's the link that we have here. So this is the chapter 2. I hope you get it about the what is needed for a website, like HTML, and then the CSS and the HTML, the website scripting. We have the web browsers, the domain and hosting, the FTP, and so on. Okay, these are the optional. So please keep tuned for the next tutorial for the chapter 3 of this playlist, which is build a web application zero to hero. Okay, so thank you for watching. Thank you for keep on tuning in. Keep yourself safe and have a nice day.